How to create sexual tension with women in 4 simple steps. The first 2 principles form the foundation. Without them, nothing else works. Step 3 is where you begin to guide the conversation in a way that builds tension. And step 4 is where you start to intensify that tension in a natural, calibrated way. Then, there's a final bonus concept most guys completely overlook: how to avoid killing the tension before it has a chance to fully develop. Because building tension is only half the game. The real skill is sustaining it long enough for it to lead somewhere meaningful. Most men never learn this skill. They either avoid tension entirely, staying in the safe, platonic zone, or they rush through it, trying to force attraction before it has time to build naturally. Both approaches lead to the same result. She loses interest. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught, "No great thing is created suddenly." This applies to attraction as well. The tension that creates real desire is not built in a single moment. It is built slowly, through consistent presence, through calibrated escalation, through the quiet confidence that you do not need to rush. And the man who masters this art becomes unforgettable. Let's start with the first step, your eyes. At the core of attraction is presence, and presence is communicated heavily through eye contact. If you cannot hold steady, relaxed eye contact, you cannot create tension. It's that simple. A lot of guys think attraction is about saying the right lines or having the perfect personality. But if your eyes are constantly darting around, breaking contact, or avoiding intensity, you immediately dissolve any emotional charge that could have been built. Think about it. Tension exists in the space between 2 people when neither of them escapes the moment. The moment you look away too quickly, laugh nervously, or shift your focus elsewhere, you release that pressure. Many men don't even realize they're doing this. They'll be talking to a woman, but their attention is split. They glance at their phone, scan the room, or look down mid-sentence. This communicates uncertainty and lack of confidence. Now, compare that to someone who maintains calm, steady eye contact. He's not staring aggressively, but he's not retreating either. He's present. That alone creates a subtle intensity. The Stoics understood the power of presence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When you hold steady eye contact, you are demonstrating that you have power over your own nervousness, that you are not controlled by discomfort, that you can remain present even when it feels intense. And that strength is deeply attractive. If you struggle with this, that's normal. Most people do at first. The way to improve is through deliberate practice. Start small. When you're talking to anyone, friends, co-workers, even strangers, focus on maintaining eye contact just a little longer than feels comfortable. You'll notice a slight internal tension, almost like holding a muscle under strain. That's a good sign. That's growth. Another effective way to practice is in public settings. When walking past people, briefly make eye contact and hold it until they pass or break it first. You don't need to be confrontational, just relaxed and grounded. If it feels intense, add a slight smile or nod. Over time, this builds your baseline comfort with eye contact, which is essential not just for attraction, but for social confidence in general. Once you have that foundation, everything else becomes easier. Because when you are comfortable in your own eyes, she becomes comfortable in yours. And comfort, combined with tension, is the foundation of attraction. Now, let's move into step 2, your voice, your rhythm, and your timing. Even with strong eye contact, you can still destroy tension if your communication is rushed or chaotic. A lot of guys speak too quickly, respond too fast, and fill every silence out of nervousness. When you do that, there's no room for tension to exist. Tension needs space. It needs pauses. It needs moments where nothing is said, but everything is felt. Imagine you're having a conversation and the woman says something slightly playful or teasing. Instead of immediately responding, you hold eye contact for a brief moment. Maybe half a second, maybe a full second. Then respond calmly. That small delay creates a shift. It signals composure. It allows the moment to breathe. The key here is moderation. You don't want long, awkward silences where neither of you knows what to say. That kills the vibe. Instead, you're inserting short, intentional pauses into the flow of conversation. These pauses act like punctuation. They emphasize moments, create anticipation, and subtly increase emotional intensity. Your speaking speed matters, too. Slowing down your speech naturally makes you appear more confident and controlled. It also allows the other person to fully process and feel what you're saying. When combined with eye contact, this creates a powerful dynamic. For example, instead of rushing through a compliment like, "You're really attractive," you might say it slower, with a pause before or after, maintaining eye contact. The delivery changes everything. Seneca wrote, "A man is as unhappy as he has convinced himself he is." When you are convinced that you need to fill every silence, you become anxious. But when you are comfortable with silence, you become confident. And confidence is attractive. Another important aspect is your response timing. When she finishes speaking, don't jump in immediately every single time. Let there be a beat. That slight delay communicates that you're not reactive, you're composed. Over time, you'll start to notice something interesting. You may feel the urge to break the tension by laughing, looking away, or speeding up your speech. That's actually a sign you're doing it right. You're stepping outside your comfort zone. The key is to stay in that moment instead of escaping it. When you do, the other person often becomes the one who reacts. She might look away, smile nervously, or shift her body language. That's when you know the dynamic is working in your favor, because tension is not something you create alone. It is something you create together. When you hold your ground, she has to respond. And her response, whether it is a nervous smile or a playful glance, tells you everything you need to know. Now that we've covered the foundation, let's move into step 3, the content of your conversation. You can have perfect eye contact and great pacing, but if your conversation stays completely neutral and platonic, the tension will only go so far. Talking about weather, work, or random facts is fine at the beginning. It establishes basic rapport. But if you never transition beyond that, the interaction remains flat. To build tension, the conversation needs to gradually shift toward a more personal and slightly playful dynamic between you and her. This doesn't mean being overly direct or intense right away. It's about subtle progression. You might start with something light, like acknowledging that you find her interesting or attractive in a simple way. Then, instead of repeating the same type of compliment, you vary your approach. You might tease her lightly. You might point out something unique about her. You might introduce a hypothetical scenario involving the two of you. For example, instead of just saying, "You're cute," you might say something like, "You seem like trouble, but the kind I might like." That adds a layer of intrigue. As the interaction continues, you can build on that. Maybe you playfully question whether the two of you would get along. Later, you suggest something you could do together. The key is progression. Each step adds a little more emotional charge than the last. If you stay at the same level, the interaction becomes predictable and loses momentum. Think of it like turning up a dial gradually. You're not jumping from 0 to maximum intensity. You're increasing it step by step. This keeps the interaction engaging and prevents it from feeling forced. The Stoic principle of patience is essential here. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." When you are patient with the progression, you demonstrate that you are a man who understands timing, who does not rush, who respects the natural flow of connection. And that patience is deeply attractive. Now, let's move into step 4, intensifying the interaction in a subtle and natural way. This is where many guys either hold back too much or go too far too quickly. The balance is crucial. The goal is not to be explicit or overwhelming. It's to introduce a slightly more suggestive or playful undertone in a way that feels organic. One effective way to do this is through humor and implication. Instead of saying something direct and potentially awkward, you hint at it in a light, playful way. For example, if she mentions something about her personality or habits, you can respond in a way that has a double meaning. Something that can be interpreted innocently, but also carries a subtle undertone. This engages her imagination, which is far more powerful than being overly direct. Another approach is to frame things in a way that both introduces and restricts the idea at the same time. For instance, you might say something like, "We definitely shouldn't hang out too much. I feel like that could get interesting." You're suggesting something while also holding it back. That contrast creates tension. Physical interaction follows the same principle. You don't jump into anything intense right away. You start small, light, casual touches, a playful nudge, a brief moment of contact. As the interaction progresses and she responds positively, you can gradually increase the level of physical closeness. The key is to always pay attention to her reactions. If she's engaging, reciprocating, and comfortable, you can continue. If not, you adjust. When verbal and physical elements are aligned, your eye contact, your pacing, your conversation, and your body language, all working together, the effect becomes much stronger. Epictetus taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." When you react to her responses with awareness and adjustment, you demonstrate emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is one of the most attractive qualities a man can possess. Now, let's talk about the final concept, not breaking the tension too early. This is where a lot of guys lose everything they've built. Tension can be broken at any stage, early, middle, or late. Beginners often break it immediately by avoiding eye contact or rushing the interaction. Others build some momentum, but lose it when things start to feel intense. More experienced guys might get further, but still collapse under pressure when the interaction reaches a higher level of intimacy. The reason this happens is discomfort. As tension increases, so does emotional intensity. If you're not used to that, your instinct will be to relieve it, to joke, to look away, to change the subject. But that's exactly what you need to resist. Growth happens by staying in that moment, even when it feels slightly uncomfortable. At the same time, there's another mistake, overdoing it. If you push too far too fast, or if you don't allow moments of pullback, you can also destroy the tension. Think of tension like a rubber band. You stretch it, then ease off slightly, then stretch it again. That rhythm keeps it alive. For example, if you reach a moment of closeness, like leaning in or sharing a quiet pause, you don't need to escalate endlessly in that same direction. Sometimes stepping back slightly actually increases the anticipation. It gives the interaction a dynamic flow instead of a straight line. The same applies to moments like a first kiss. Instead of prolonging it endlessly, keeping it brief and pulling back can actually make it more powerful. It leaves something unresolved, which naturally builds more tension. Seneca wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence on the future." When you are not anxious about what comes next, you can enjoy the present moment. And that enjoyment, that presence, is what makes the tension sustainable. Ultimately, creating tension is about balance. It's about presence without pressure, progression without force, and confidence without rigidity. When you combine strong eye contact, controlled pacing, intentional conversation, and gradual escalation, you create an interaction that feels natural yet charged. And when you learn to hold that tension without rushing to release it, you move from just having conversations to creating real, memorable connections. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When your thoughts are of presence, patience, and grounded confidence, your soul becomes a place of attraction. She will feel it, she will be drawn to it, and she will remember it. Because in a world of rushed, anxious, performative men, a man who is calm, present, and in control is a rare and precious thing. Be that man, and watch how everything changes. The tension you create will not just be felt in the moment. It will linger. It will echo. It will make her think about you when you are not there. And that is the ultimate goal. Not to control her, but to be so present in yourself that she cannot help but be drawn to you. That is the Stoic way. That is the path of the man who understands that true power is not in dominating others, but in mastering himself. And when you master yourself, you become magnetic, you become unforgettable, you become the man she cannot stop thinking about. So take these principles and apply them. Not as techniques, but as a way of being. Become the man who is present, patient, and grounded. And watch as women begin to gravitate toward you, drawn by something they can't quite name, but can't quite resist. Because that something is the real you, the man who has done the work, the man who is not trying to impress, but simply being. And that is the most attractive thing in the world.